Well, why don't we have whoever would like to do the Pledge of Allegiance, go ahead and do that.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the
United States
of America,
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to a regular meeting of the Silverton Board of Trustees. Today is Monday, September 11th, 2023, and the time is 7:01 p.m. And I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Trustee Edwards is absent. Trustee Cranker.
here.
Trustee Harper.
Here.
Trustee Fairma also absent. Trustee George.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Here.
Mayor Furman.
Here. Thank you. Do we have any revisions to the agenda this evening?
Yes, I would like to request that we take up item 12, the request for executive session for that particular item.
Okay,
Steph will likely put this on the next meeting.
great. Anything else, trustees?
That's all.
All right. We'll now open the meeting up for public comment. If you're in person, please approach the podium, sign your name, introduce yourself, and then we'll give you 3 minutes to speak. And if you're on Zoom, go ahead and click the raise hand button and we'll queue you up after the in-person public comment.
Hello, Bill Walco representing the Blair Street Historical District Association. On the agenda tonight is the Blair Street redevelopment project and the associated funding. I want to speak on behalf of advocating for the follow through and the commitment to complete that project as envisioned. I know that there are challenges associated with the funding on it. We haven't received all of the grant monies that we were attempting to get, but I want to strongly encourage the board to consider other funding options in order to complete the project as it's envisioned and as it's outlined in the engineering notes. I know that there may be some discussion of other alternatives for how we can go about this. I just want to caution about the consequences for breaking the project up into smaller pieces. It may be more difficult to get competitive bids from multiple contractors if we start making the project smaller, and that's not going to serve the community well. The other issue to consider is that if we delay elements of the project, they're only going to cost more. We're in a very inflationary period. That certainly relates true to construction, and that doesn't seem likely to change anytime soon. So trying to be the best steward of the limited resources that we have as a community, I want to encourage consideration for finding ways to make the project happen as soon as we can, as it's envisioned. And I'm welcome to discuss any other things with the board, either during this meeting or at subsequent meetings, so that we can move forward on behalf of the community. Thank you very much.
Do we have other in-person comment this evening? Looks like no. And I don't see any hands up on Zoom. But one more call out. If you're on Zoom and you'd like to make a comment, please click the raise hand button. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public comment. We will have another public comment period at the end of this meeting. And we will move to the first item on our agenda, which is 3A, presentations and proclamations. And this is a proclamation declaring the month of September as Emergency Services Appreciation Month.
So Tyler also informed me that this happens in May as well, but being Silverton, we wanted to be special and have it happen this month in recognition of all our emergency services and recognizing that today is September 11th and paying tribute to our emergency services by this proclamation from the board. So we do have a really beautiful little proclamation here that we'll pass around for you all to sign.
Would you like me to read the now therefore portion of the proclamation, which is like the substance of it? Okay. So now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Trustees on behalf of the elected officials, town staff, and the community of the town of Silverton, Colorado, wishing to express their sincere appreciation and immense gratitude for the dedication and commitment to the citizens of the town of Silverton by our local emergency services, that we hereby declare henceforth the month of September as Emergency Services Appreciation Month.
As I was on my way over here tonight, the emergency response was swift and they were all headed out, and it just makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, we've got an outstanding team, especially relative to the size of our town, not only our EMS and rescue guys, but our fire guys and the sheriff's department and public health. I mean, we're very lucky to have the people we have, and the commitment and dedication they show is really second to none. So
All right, well.
Thank you.
Thanks for preparing that. The next item on our agenda is new business 4A, resolution 2023-13, a resolution of the Board of Trustees, the town of Silverton renaming Columbine Park and adopting the name Anisi Park.
So thank you all for joining us on Saturday for the grand opening of our Anisi Park. And I forgot to thank all of the board members who had supported this project over the years. So really just thank you guys for your support and keeping this going. It was a huge infrastructure build for the town in 20 years. So we're very excited about that. And then so in 1991, the Anisi family gifted the land that has been known as Columbine Park to the town of Silverton. And at the time of donation, it was agreed that at some future date, the park would commemorate the Anisi family's contribution. So this renaming is 32 years later. And the town is in a position to honor that agreement with the renaming of Columbine Park to Anisi Park.
Great. That was a really exciting day. It's a huge accomplishment. First building since Kendall, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think the energy that just came together was really exciting. Great momentum, and just seeing, what's happening on Blair Street. I think it was really positive feel and just like, wow, we could do this. Okay, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2023-13, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the town of Silverton renaming Columbine Park and adopting the name Anisi Park.
Second. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Kränker,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee George,
yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes.
Okay, now we can put up the sign for that.
Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is number 5, consideration to approve the consent agenda items.
And you will find the Mullis contract attached with no significant changes from last year. I have spoken with Jennifer. And while we are heartbroken that Brian is no longer with us, Jennifer would love to continue to contract at Mullis.
Just a clarification for the public for the financial statements where we have Eco Action Partners in rather a large amount, just if you want to clarify that that's related to the price.
Sure, yeah. So that's their portion of our $100,000 prize, and they'll be helping facilitate like a greenhouse gas inventory as well as exploring solar in our region. So they were the partner already with San Miguel Power. So that was kind of our whole team, the team gold that came together for that prize.
Thanks.
And since we received all the money, now we have to dish it out with their invoices.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Trustee Kränker,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee George,
yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Barney, Yes. Mayor Furman.
Yes. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is staff reports.
So I will be announcing the Facilities Parks and Rec Director position on Thursday. That'll go in the Silverton Standard. Applications, cover letters, and resumes can be emailed to myself and Melina before October 9th. So we'll leave it open for 3 weeks. And given the amount of interest I have received, I won't be scheduling time to meet with people before their interviews. I don't have the time, nor do I intend to demonstrate any kind of bias prior to the interview process. The interviews will be structured as a comprehensive assessment with a panel interview, supplemental written response, and a presentation. And I'll be requesting the Facilities, Parks, and Rec Committee to participate in the panel interviews and presentations middle of October. So that's my update on that. With all the staff turnover, we are catching up and we'll be a week late on getting utility bills out. This will be announced formally in a public service announcement. And then just wanted to give a huge shout out to the Creative District, Lisa and Lori, for their help in making Saturday's dedication ceremony and all the events surrounding that a huge success. They put in a ton of work. So I'm happy to answer any questions on our staff reports.
I had one question on the EPA update. I was just curious if at town hall, if you've heard any complaints or anything with trucks driving. I mean, it seems like it's been better than we expected. So just checking if that's the correct pulse.
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
I have reminded them of our traffic impact fee. But other than that, we haven't heard anything yay or nay.
Are we at the portion of the project where we were expecting significant traffic, or is that still to come?
Well, they had said sometime in September, so I'm thinking it might still be coming.
Yeah. And we haven't it's not totally clear how much material they've been able to source locally versus truck in. Yeah.
That'd be a cool update to get maybe at the next meeting, just finding out from them, like if they have updates on that material volume and volume of trucks in town.
All right, I will reach out to them.
Any other discussion, comments, or questions related to staff reports? Great. Thank you very much, staff. I know you guys are stretched thin and we really appreciate it. All right, next we have committee reports. There weren't any committee meetings, but we did have a meeting about committee meetings.
Committee on committee.
And we had boards and committee assignment meeting immediately prior to our last regular meeting where we sorted through each of the boards and made some new appointments.
I just remembered something on staff reports really quickly.
Sure.
Just to note, I thought that the CPS update in the staff reports was really awesome and thorough, and it's really informative for the public if they just wanted to check that portion out. I think it gives a good kind of broad view look at what's happening in the planning world. It's really good, really well done, and I'm glad it's included.
This is our new kind of format moving forward as them acting as a planning director. So
Cool. Thank you for that.
it's been important.
Yeah, okay, sorry, and back to committees.
Great. I didn't really have anything else other than to say that there's a spreadsheet in the agenda for tonight's meeting on page 24 of our packet that includes all the different committees and the staff, as well as trustees that are assigned to those committees, in case anyone's curious. And then we always have the upcoming meeting dates for those committees as they're scheduled at the end of our regular meeting agendas. If you're also looking for when those meetings are happening. Any other comments on our committee for committees? Great. Next is trustee reports.
It was a very exciting weekend. Really, really great.
It was pretty awesome to have double concerts on Friday and Saturday. The Nisi Park dedication was really cool. It was well attended and there were tons of vendors. I forget the numbers. I think you might have the numbers, but for the Friday concert, they counted somewhere between 350 and 400 people in attendance, which was amazing. And then I think someone was saying that on Saturday, the vendors have 40 vendors. Is that right? Something.
And a lot of locals.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what was really neat is just to see all the different variety of folk that came out to just enjoy the day, be together, the different partners that were all involved, just really good community vision and community connection.
And leveraging of the creative district. I think that partnership is really flourishing and you can see the effects of over the years, just having that be such a Lisa and Lori might not feel like it's very sustainable because they would just on a marathon, but it seems well established now. And I think we can start to see what a well-established nonprofit organization in the community can do when they operate year after year like that. It's really, really impressive.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. The next item on our agenda is continued business 9A Blair Street project and funding.
Okay, now for the meat and potatoes here. So we did not receive our Department of Transportation funds. The reasoning was that we needed a safety plan for the entire town and not just the intent to conduct a safety plan for the entire town. So we still have the CDOT funding. But we asked SGM to create a reduced project size with possible funding that we could secure. And that would just be the 2 blocks and not the side streets. That's in your memo. This is what we presented in the packet and would need additional amount of funds on top of the committed match. And after speaking with Bill, the Blair Street Association does not support reducing the project down. Their whole purpose is to connect Green Street with Blair Street. So really not being able to do those side streets isn't really helping them. And so we have a couple options in here for you all to consider. I think we wrote it thinking maybe we needed to do the reduced amount, but that would still leave us committing about $500,000 to the project. That's the 200 that was already committed, 229 that was already committed. On top of that would be the 345. So we're looking at a significant chunk of money, and then we would be able to match the 500 CDOT funds for a total of about $1 million just for those 2 streets, or just for those 2 blocks, not even the side streets. So we're kind of at a point where we do need to tell CDOT if we are going to get the money or not. We had told them December, but since now we know we're not going to get the grant, they are interested in meeting with us probably. What is it, next week?
Yeah, September 20th.
September 20th. So that's kind of our deadline with CDOT. And the entire scale project, I think we had those numbers originally on here and we took them off because we didn't think it was feasible, but
Over 2 million.
it would have been 2 million for the entire scale of the project. So just to give you guys some context on all of that. There are options to finance or to disperse these funds over, from the general fund as a capital commitment. Those are options as well. So I just kind of wanted to open that up for discussion with you all, and feel free to ask us questions because I don't think I articulated myself right here.
I wanted to kind of see if we could bookend what we're talking about. So if we were to say we're all in, we want to do all of it. We want to do the streets and the side streets. That is, if we can just keep it in ballpark range right now, that's like $2 million, right?
2.3.
2.3. And that's 10th Street to 14th Street.
Yep.
Both sides of Blair Street and the side streets.
And that was the estimate given to us in January. So hopefully that still stands.
Sure. Right. Okay. So we can say like a little over 2 million is the all in. And if we took it back to just the amount that the town has already budgeted and the amount of the grant, what's that number? Let's just name that.
So we have 823,000 right now. With our budgeted funds, previously budgeted funds and the CDOT grant. And the reduced scope is a little over 1 million. And so I don't know how much we could get done with this amount. We could find that out. But it would likely be maybe just the 1100 block, just the 1200 block, or just one side of the 1100 and the 1200 block. It would be reduced a lot.
We're anywhere from 230,000 to $1.5 million short,
Mhm.
depending on the small scope versus the big scope.
Right. And within the scope, middle zone, how much have we discussed the possibilities of like, this is more valuable, compared to this? Like, okay, if we could only, like, is it more important to have all one side done? Is it better to scale it back and have two sides, one block? Like, help me understand the.
Yeah, so initially, when we discussed reducing the scale, our two thoughts were the 1100 and the 1200 block, or just the 1200 intersection, where the train lets off. That way the train immediately after you get off the train, you could be on a sidewalk, and you could be connected to an EC Park. However, that would be, I don't have the cost estimates for that. But those were kind of our two thoughts on priorities.
Okay.
We would like to do everything, but we were thinking that it might be nice from like an ADA perspective to have sidewalks at the train.
Okay.
The CDOT funds aren't available until 2025.
Correct. Yep.
What's the I guess I'm curious if we've got a year and a half to the earliest we could possibly see those funds. Is there any way to continue to hold CDOT off from reallocating those dollars contingent on us finding an alternate source for the full scope of project? Because to me, it seems like we have a year and a half to find other grant or public money to help us get there before we really have enough information to know if this is viable or not, or how much the town would need to budget. Like, is there even the potential for programs and finding that funding in the next 18 to 20 months?
Like infrastructure.
I'm,
Nodding.
this is something we've been talking about.
Yeah.
I'm all about being creative, so I'm enjoying this conversation. We need to be creative on this.
I think this is a really important project. It's been a frustratingly long time that this has been shovel ready. Like, I think of all the plans that we've had on the shelf, this is one of the ones that was completed earliest. And a lot of the other ones we've actually already checked off the box. And so it'd be really cool to do this one, but there's scarcity of funding in Silverton. And I don't want to be put in a position where I have to choose like this versus affordable housing. And right now we are. And I also don't want to lose $500,000 of CDOT funds. So I guess what I'd like to understand better is like, is there more money somewhere?
Not that we've identified right now, but we do have a new grant administrator with the San Juan Development Association. So potentially having them work on funding for this could be one of their tasks. Lucy's been in contact with CDOT a lot more on this one than I have as far as how long we can push it, but before we don't have
The problem is that CDOT, you have to go through so many clearance processes and those start now. And so I think if we can confidently say, yes, we're going to use this money when we get it, then I think there's nothing stopping us from trying to find more money down the line. But I don't think that we can not have this gap in front of us right now and say, yes, we're going to use the money if we're not 100% sure. So maybe we could budget for the 345 gap we have now and try and find the rest of the money later. Or maybe we can see what the reduced scope looks like, but I think that would be really small.
Can I offer an alternative?
Mhm.
So we've already set aside How much money for the matching funds for that CDOT grant?
229,000.
Right. So let's continue to keep the 229 circled. Let's tell CDOT, yeah, we'll take the money. And then let's figure out sometime between now and 2025, if we can do the full scope of project or figure out what we can do with $800,000. There's no reason to not still spend the 200 something on Blair Street to get 500 something of free money. That's really good leverage dollars. And I don't want to do the reduced scope. But, you know, why throw away that? Like worst case, we'll do a less advantageous $800,000 project. And best case, we figure out how to do the whole thing.
And I'm wondering about the, you know, like reduced scope language even, like if we could just phase it, if it's instead of calling it reduced scope, because I think we all are in favor of investing as much as we can in Blair Street. Like if the project is designed in a way that leverages the money that we have on hand, that gets something moving, if we're allowed to spend money and we're not trying to hold on to it to leverage additional funds later. I guess that was a question I had is like, if we phased the project and in terms of looking at the priority and the ultimate scope, and then if we were allowed to start spending some money and getting some momentum versus waiting a whole nother year and a half only to be denied, only to kind of have another level of frustration. And I guess I'm just wondering like what this looks like in a phased way and if there's benefit to continuing to hold the funds to leverage more later, or if there's benefit to starting to kind of get it under construction and moving in the direction and then saying, we have so much momentum. This is a very well supported project in our community and like having that approach.
We don't get the money until 2025, no matter what.
Anyway, I hear you, but if it's planned in terms of like, we could start this now
With what money?
with town money.
200, I mean, $200,000 doesn't go very far when you're trying to do like infrastructure work.
Okay, well then we wait till 2025, but I just
I'm not
don't
an
want
engineer here,
to.
like maybe there's a way, but I'm saying. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and a big part of this project, the beginning stages is getting all the historic clearances, the environmental clearances, making sure that the construction plans are up to CDOT standards. So by starting it, potentially that will help us down the line, and the next phases will be a little, they'll look a little less expensive for the work that's being done because it's going to be mostly construction work if we can get all those clearances done now. So.
Can you guys speak to a little bit to your experience of shopping this out to get it funded? Like, I know we've been around a bit on this. We've been around the block, the Blair Street block a bit on this. So do you guys have any new thoughts or ideas on kind of what has or hasn't worked and things we could be thinking about differently?
As far,
Like what you guys have gone after, and if you think there are, I mean, how optimistic are you that there are other sources of funding that we haven't explored?
yeah.
Is that a better question?
I think one hurdle that we've run into a lot is that a lot of the grant programs we'd be going after that could fund this look at safety data, and we are luckily a really safe town. We don't have a lot of accidents. We don't have a lot of road related deaths. And so that has made us ineligible for certain programs.
Yeah.
Because this is a very economic development project, but also in terms of grant funding, this is more of like a safety project in terms of what is available that I've seen. I don't know.
Access project. I really like where you were headed with that.
What's that?
Like ADA
Accessibility.
compliant.
Yeah.
That was something that really struck me at Anisi is like, it was amazing to see a wheelchair pulled into that space. And that's something that Silverton, it's really hard. I mean, it's a really challenging place, I think, to move around physically. I don't know if there's something in terms of accessibility, curbs, ramps, Yeah.
There is some funding out there for connecting communities and it's like
Mhm.
promoting infill development, but it's focused on affordable housing. So if somehow we could tie this into an affordable housing project. That's getting really creative.
Yeah.
But thinking about maybe there's, spaces that people could be utilizing, above their shops or something like that. Getting creative that way, would open us up for more funding as well.
Mhm.
Okay, so there are some hurdles to funding, but we have a year and a half. What decision do we need to make tonight?
I'm comfortable committing us to the minimum scope dollar spend, but not knowing what our construction scope will be that best utilizes those funds, because we've already circled up the 229. What I'm not comfortable doing is committing another $300,000 to get to like something that is too much of a compromise. So I'd say like, let's say yes to the CDOT money. Let's say yes to 229. Let's figure out a better plan by 2025. The inflationary thing we can't do much about since we're stuck till 2025 anyway, with some small amount that we can spend between now and then. And I am concerned a little bit about too much phasing, because that can just make the costs
Yeah,
exponential.
and that's what we heard too in the public comment.
And I'd say let's do that. I mean, that's something. Yeah, Tyler.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I just think if we can commit as the least dollars possible from the town, and not because the project isn't what we want to fund, but to make sure that we can maintain the CDOT monies and then figure out how to fund the project differently. I totally agree, but we definitely shouldn't let that $500,000, go away. We really need to figure out how to keep that and spend it and then work towards getting the remaining funding. But yeah, doing it with as little town funding right now as possible, because again, it sounds like the Blair Street folks would like the entire project done. We would like the entire project done. So, putting a couple $100,000 more into something that isn't going to realize that goal, at this point, I don't think is the best idea.
Mhm. And I know we have the Blair Street Association with their commitment of funding. I mean, Blair Street ownership has changed a bit, right? There's new residents, there's new stuff. Like, can we have a continued discussion on kind of like improvement district or funding in the area through businesses or residents? I mean, I know in our code, like, private property owners are responsible for the sidewalks in front of their home. This is a much bigger scope and scale of project, clearly. But are there just other things like town commitments, maybe improvement district ideas, grant funding that we can pursue to really get this thing done? Because I appreciate the Blair Streets Association's feedback that like, it doesn't really serve the purpose if we're limiting the scope so
Not doing
much
the
of
whole
like
thing.
connecting it to Green Street. That was the whole idea, is that it's walkable, it's accessible. It's like having a bridge across the river so you can connect two trails. So yeah, I think are there other creative funding mechanisms that we can explore? I don't know.
Well, I have a meeting with Sarah on Wednesday. So I'll be talking about.
And it seems like a good collaboration or brainstorm with the Blair Street Association would be to figure out what's the best use of the $800-something thousand in our worst case scenario.
Okay.
And if the Blair Street Association has other ideas or access to funding that we haven't brainstormed in this group of four.
We have some ideas we were throwing around earlier, so yeah. Great. That consensus?
Great.
Great, thank you. Good job, collective brain.
We're continuing to bark up the trees.
All right, the next item on our agenda is 9B, wetlands RFP review. And as I've previously stated, I will continue recusing from this topic.
And since we do have only 4 trustees now, only a affirmative vote would be accepted at this point. And to move this along, if there is a split vote, we would need to put this on for the next meeting. So we have included 4 responses that we received for the wetlands inventory. There are 2 proposals that staff kind of sifted through on Friday and liked the best, which was the Ironwood Consulting proposal and the Quandary Consulting proposal. Both proposals break down the cost for inventory and program recommendations. So potentially thinking about phasing that out as far as we do the inventory first, the program recommendations second. If that's something that you guys would like to pursue, like that's kind of what was palatable for staff. Do we have, can you promote Sheila on? And then
So much further down this road, I do just want to acknowledge that there are only 4 trustees tonight. And I'm wondering if we want to have a quick discussion as a group of just not having, this is an issue that Liv and Jordan have been really passionate about. And I think that not having their voices in this conversation is limiting. And this is, you know, we're investing town funds in this. And so I really kind of want to think about if we're open to the idea of tabling this and postponing it until we have Liv and Jordan around the discussion with us. As a group of trustees.
41 non-emergent.
My only concern with that is the timeline. I do know that some of these guys, the consultants definitely gave us some timelines that we're sort of dependent on starting pretty soon. Obviously, once it starts snowing, that's going to make it much more difficult. So you'll have to excuse me.
I recognize that.
I have a cold and my voice is a little bit, it's coming and going, but. So that would be my only concern about that.
Other input, you guys?
I hear your comment, Sally. I think it's relevant. I do think what we have presented here was really kind of gave me some assurance that, wow, like we could work through this. There are some real experts that responded to this and could help us kind of navigate this and at least come up with a better framework. And so I can't speak for Liv or Jordan, but from all of the discussion we've had so far, it feels like what we have presented in a variety of these proposals is like at least decently in line. There doesn't seem to be anything here that stands out to me that they would be particularly opposed to. And I, for one, am particularly anxious to just keep moving forward so we can kind of settle this and give everybody clear direction. But it does feel like a small group today for something we've been talking about for so long.
Fairly a big deal and consequential. Okay, Jim, are you on? You're good. I just wanted to open.
I want to keep the ball rolling. I think we're at a pivotal point where we can keep this momentum moving forward and get the answers that we've been seeking as a community. And this is how we're going to do it. We're going to say yes or no and give a thumbs up and point staff and our community in the general direction of resolving this ongoing issue.
Okay, let's carry on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's by the point though.
Okay. All right. So where was I? Okay, we recommend Ironwood and Quandary. Both proposals broke down the cost for inventory and then the program recommendation. So both proposals were around the $60,000 to $70,000 range, with the inventory coming in at about $40,000. Thinking about the fact that this is unbudgeted item for 2023, this could be budgeted into 2024 as well. I know you all want me to tell you what we're giving up in order to approve the expenditures of this caliber. But to be honest, it depends. I anticipate us to be over budget expenditures for the year due to snow plowing, the amount we have used community planning strategies, overages on NEC and engineering for development in town and consulting, helping with our current bookkeeping system. So all of those have kind of been unanticipated overages that will bring us higher than we anticipated going into 2024. That being said, we are seeing higher numbers than we had budgeted for as well with sales tax. So I do feel like if this is a priority of the board, we can support this with the funding that was presented in these proposals.
Sheila, thanks for joining us. Did you have any other feedback from the CPS perspective as far as what we've received or kind of a way to move forward with what we have in the RFPs?
No, we, when I met with Gloria and with Lucy, we both kind of zeroed in on the Ironwood and the Quandary. We thought they were the best ones overall. So I think we're still, if we're going to move forward, I like the idea of separating it out and doing the inventory first. There was some discussion about possible grant applications that we could use moving forward with the District 8, I think it is. So I think separating it out is a good plan. But between the two, they both came in really high on all of us when we were looking at it.
Thanks. Yeah, those were the two that really stood out to me as far as the quality of the proposals, their familiarity of our context, the budget. And honestly, I was really encouraged looking at this because I think we've had so many discussions around this issue and we've had numerous community members say, like, can't we just get an expert that will help us know what we're talking about? And I feel like this gets us a lot closer to that. And I appreciate that there are folks out there who know how to do this work, and we're not making this up from scratch. This is a issue that has come up in other communities and that has been worked through in other communities, and the pros and cons have been considered. So I really found some assurance in what was proposed here and thought that it would really get us closer to kind of having that prioritization discussion that I have said multiple times that I think is really important. And knowing the function of some of the wetland areas that we might have in town, the purpose, and really kind of the value of them as we think about development and not development and flood control and all the different things that we have to think about in town. So I thought those were two really strong proposals. And I think we kind of couldn't go wrong with either one of those. I'm an advocate of spending this money in this time period because, again, I don't love having a moratorium for very long. I don't think it's very good for our community. I don't think it's good for dealing with our housing crisis and making things predictable for locals who might want to build and things that we might want to see happen. And so I am eager to see this move forward, to get this work done, to be able to move into like the next season with a clear framework. So I think either of these proposals could be really a great way to start. And again, maybe phasing it out. I don't know how we want to negotiate that with the contractor, but I think in the end, it would be nice to have some options for what a kind of mitigation program would look like. But doing the inventory and the kind of functional assessment first made a lot of sense to me too.
Hey, you got anything?
Yeah, I sure do. I did when reading I appreciate the top two proposals as well, and I liked one of them in particular, Ironwood. It seems like they've done this already for a couple other Colorado communities, which I liked, and then they did have it phased in, the estimated per task total costs. And they did include in that cost estimate optional tasks, so, we could sort of maybe move through it as in a phased way. And if we can get what we need sooner, great. If we need to keep going, then we can continue to have them do the optional tasks. I think it was 3.5 and three optional task 3.5, but they did Summit, Boulder, Laramie County, and I kind of like that they've worked in Colorado. And a lot of them live in the Four Corners area on their personal professional resumes. So that also just sort of stuck out to me, but both of the top two seemed very, very high quality. So
Thanks, Tyler. Jim?
We get the same options with both of those top two. Roughly.
Well, the one thing about Ironwood is they presented two different ways to do the inventory. So they would be coming back to you all for that decision point of which way you wanted to do the inventory. So I actually kind of like the quandary one better in that respect, because it was just one recommendation to move forward with rather than having you all choose again.
And that keeps the ball rolling forward and gets us to where we want to go.
that's an excellent point. Again, one of the reasons we asked these folks to give us, we needed their expertise. And so if they come back and ask us to choose one of two ways, I mean, we're going to be right back where we started to say we're not the experts. So maybe that, thank you for bringing that up, Gloria. That's an excellent point.
Good.
Preference?
My preference is the team's preference, and the team is leaning towards Quandary, so that would be mine. And we get the same bang for our buck. That's my direction.
Yeah, I would absolutely support Quandary as well.
Thank you, T.
Okay, well, I know that this decision is what keeps the process of addressing wetlands in Silverton moving forward, and this has been a really difficult issue for me to process as a trustee, because the more we talk about it, the more insane I think I feel, because at some point the subject just shifted into a place where it made me sound like I'm not an environmentalist or that I don't care about wetlands in some way. I just want to be really clear that this is not to me about an environmental protection effort. I'm really struggling with our process on this one, and a project of this scope and magnitude with consequences of this nature, where we are spending unbudgeted town funds on a project that has really limited public input, that hasn't been identified as a priority of the Board of Trustees. It's mentioned in the master plan, but I wouldn't say specifically, I think we've generally acknowledged in the master plan, prioritizing sustainable initiatives and codes that set Silverton up for a successful and vibrant future. That certainly is a nod to, that this project certainly falls within that scope. I have some concerns that we're taking on a really big project that has long-term consequences for our community, which may be positive, and they may be they're certainly unanticipated. I think this is a very complex issue in terms of mapping processes, measurement processes. If we were to move in the direction of a protection program, I think that's incredibly complex. and often overlaps with, you know, issues of science and public property and, you know, how do we decide what can be done where and so it's not that I am opposed to protecting wetlands. I just am very uncomfortable with the unfolding of this project in terms of its process. And I kind of have been thinking, like, if we were looking at this project, if we call it a project, like a wetlands project, the way we might say, like, let's look at big priorities in our town. Affordable housing. This is a big priority in our town. It is something that has been on the top of our list for many, many years. And as a result, the affordable housing project has been workshopped. You know, we've gone through a sort of intentional and thoughtful path to understand this issue for us. And what I mean by that is we've met with experts on housing. We've met with people who build affordable housing. We've had affordable housing workshops. We've had Beth Kramer. We've had information on pencil and paper solutions to housing. We've had workshops on like how to build affordable housing. We've had a lot of different sort of prongs into this very complex issue that has long-term consequences for our community. And still, you know, we're kind of stuck, you know, we're not necessarily passing single lot building codes or, you know, we're not necessarily, it's complex and we're not making a lot of really rapid movement, I wouldn't say. Not that we aren't making movement at all. And I know that $60,000 or $40,000, it's not $2 million to build affordable housing. I just am very uncomfortable with I'm just uncomfortable with where we are. I think that the decision we make tonight, and I think the decisions, all the little decisions that we've made along the way seem like we're moving in the right direction. We're moving forward. Because we're moving towards something, but I'm not necessarily certain that we've really intentionally lined out what we're moving towards. And I could be sitting at a table with 6 trustees, and we haven't had a conversation about how much we're willing to spend on this. You know, my number in my head might be 100,000, and the trustee sitting next to me might have a number that's 500,000. We've had absolutely no budget conversation. And so I think that's a little more irresponsible than I'd like to be in terms of spending public funds on this. I think the public input has been regular and consistent at our meetings, but we haven't necessarily held public input opportunities for people. I think this issue is incredibly complex. I think I think that the proposals we're looking at tonight, the Quandary and the Ironwood, they make sense. They're clear. They seem like good fits for our community. I echo much of what you guys have observed and noted about them. I just think that it's sort of this one little decision that's within the framework of this little by little along the way. And I get back to the same question of how did we get here? And I'm just not sure that this is how we want to approach these consequential issues for our town that involve unbudgeted public funds going towards something that hasn't been identified as a trustee priority, is alluded to in a master plan, and hasn't included a project design component to it. I think that's really that's actually the best word for it. I just don't see the design in this. And once we have this information, I think it'll be really nice, but I'm not clear on what do we do then? You know, do we have that lined out? Are we anticipating and are we able to prepare for what comes next when we get this information into our hands? And so I understand wanting to move forward. I do see the timeline. I think that the proposals made it really clear that they wanted to get to work as soon as possible. I feel that pressure. I feel the, we have the pause happening. We want to lift it as soon as possible. This gets us in that direction. I just, I think I'm having a hard time voting on something tonight that lacks sufficient information and understanding of the complexity of the long-term consequences. Yeah, and how much we're willing to spend and how far we want to go.
I guess I kind of see this as taking a stab at some things that we're going to have to address in the code rewrite anyways. You know, we're going to start talking about our hazard areas again. We're going to start talking about avalanche zones and what we're like. We're going to go through a whole update on how our land use code operates. And to me, this feels very centered in that, even if it's an issue that is sort of bubbled to the top sooner and in a process that is not quite in line with our full code rewrite. But to me, it sort of feels like this is just something we would have had to kind of hash out and work through in that process anyways, because it was probably going to come up in relation to how the hillside gets developed, how we look at land throughout town, how we think about our land use. And it just happens that this kind of gained a little bit of momentum moving down the hill. And so for me, like if we're thinking about hazard areas, stormwater and drainage and how water is going to flow through town and be affected as more development happens, or as we think of, the hazard maps are the biggest ones that I can think of. Like, to me, this just feels like one of many kind of pieces in this that we're going to have to do. And that is a little bit, it could be disconcerting if we think we have to spend $60,000 for every like kind of consideration that we're going to come across in the code rewrite. But I still feel like this gives us a framework to move forward, because in the same way, if we were talking about our avalanche areas and we were saying we're going to reevaluate them, we're going to look at what the historic data is, we're going to look at all these lots that have never had a slide but currently are prohibited from development. We would have experts and we would have an RFP or something that would say we're going to do this and we're going to think about it and we're going to revise it, and that would have consequences as well for different folks' property and how land is used throughout town. And to me, I've said all along, even after this effort is done, I will still need convincing that we should significantly limit development in a variety of parts of town. Like, I am still of the position that housing is our number one priority in this community. And if people have to spend $800,000 to live here, we will lose the soul of Silverton. Like, it will be permanently changed. It will not be the place that we all want it to be, love it to be, that the master plan states it to be. And so things that limit what can be built and how it can be built, and things that discourage the kinds of development that we want to see happen, I am very skeptical of, because I've seen too many communities where we use environmental policy and we use historic preservation policy to really just not build the thing next to us that we don't want to see, and not have the apartments and not have the affordable housing. So even after this is done, to your point, Sally, there's no kind of guarantee of where we go from there, right? That we do this assessment and it leads us to these XYZ areas of town are now protected or prohibited from development or whatever. But to me, I just think moving forward with a policy and approach in our code that navigates changes that can happen at the Supreme Court with the Army Corps that maybe we do all care about, changes that can happen statewide. I do see a role for the town having some level of protection of certain areas in our code. And I don't know how to get to that prioritization and conversation without doing something like this.
Well, and again, I'm not saying that I wouldn't have ultimately ended up here. This may have ultimately been a part of a project design where this is identified as a priority. And we say as a function of that priority, that is going to mean, I'd like to add to the table here, I would really like to say, purchasing wetland property and conserving it, there are different approaches, and perhaps this would have been one of them as we navigate and design a process that looks at prioritizing wetlands and potentially preserving or protecting them. I'm not saying I wouldn't have ultimately gotten here. I just think that because these have been small steps towards this, I just want to note this, and I'm going to bookmark it and say, right here is another one of those small steps. And we're moving towards this thing that I don't think we've identified or defined or have an understanding of the complexity or the consequences. And we're going to move in the direction without that. And I'm totally comfortable with everyone disagreeing with me on this one. So I'm not seeking to be persuasive or even to create unity on this. I am totally comfortable that I hope that I am wrong. I hope that I am totally wrong on everything that I've said or believed about where we're headed.
I would just add that, we did vote to redefine non-jurisdictional wetlands, right? Because we didn't have a great definition. And so we adopted that definition, the regional supplement to the Army Corps of Engineers book. But right now we have a definition of something, but we don't know where they are or what they are. Or we know what they are, but we don't know where they are. So we've adopted this definition, but without doing the mapping. If we left this in place and we just didn't go ahead with this mapping tool, then we have a definition, but no idea why we have the definition.
But then I think the idea there is it puts the onus on the property owner instead of the onus on the town.
Which I think that, shouldn't. I thought we were trying to make it easier. So if people already know, if there's already a map, and again, to agree with Dana's point as well, this doesn't mean that we're automatically going to say, well, this is now mapped. You can't do this here. But having a map may help property owners, especially potential buyers, say, well, this is mapped. This is a potential wetland, or this is a wetland. And we've already done it for them. So hopefully we're not passing the cost off to property owners.
The statement was made that we don't know how we got here. We are at this point in this discussion with this RFP in front of us, due to over 20 years of back and forth on a state and federal level, where this town and this county wasn't protected. We have embarked over the past year to protect ourselves. We have been plodding along the best we can. We have heard from both sides of the argument, all sides of the argument on this, from frustrated homeowners and property owners that want to build and that are unable to due to a foggy, murky definition, to individuals who want to protect what we have, the pristine hillside and areas of our town that need protecting, needs a definition. So how do we get there? We get there by having these discussions. We get there by having meetings open to the public, Q&A with folks online and folks here in person. And we get there, but we get here to this moment by directing our team, by challenging ourselves, And we're here. This is where this is the result of all those actions. We have a proposal with 4 individuals in front of us, organizations, I should say. 2 of them we're really leaning towards. 1 of them we really want. And it doesn't cost an exorbitant amount of money to provide our community a peace of mind and a roadmap for the future. Trustees in the past, boards in the past have discussed this. What has been unique about this board and the individuals on this board is that I believe we have risen above that, and we have been decisive, and we've made decisions. Some I believe are the right ones, and I believe they're all the right ones, but some may be questionable. This is one that is 100% not for us, not for the team, but for the town of Silverton. This is a decision to be made tonight to keep the ball rolling so that we can provide that peace of mind for everyone in this community, to provide that true definition and to not backslide in any way. And pushing it back another 2 weeks, is it going to kill us? No. Will it stall us out? Absolutely. We've come to this point month after month, meeting after meeting, and I believe that being decisive, being caring and thoughtful to those homeowners, those property owners, to the folks that want to be able to save our wetlands, they need that definition. So let's give it to them. That's how I feel. I want to give them the definition. I want to give them the tools that are here in this toolbox and allow everyone to have that peace of mind once and for all. And yes, it's going to take a few more months for these results to come in, but we've been promising results, and this is how we get here. It's just how I feel. And I think we'll come to the same conclusion if we wait in 2 weeks that we would have come to tonight. In fact, I'm almost positive, with Jordan and Liv being here. Then this only passes if we have a unanimous vote of 4. Due to the fact that we're missing Jordan and Liv, and Shane is recused. So we either vote in unison or we don't, and we kick the can down the road for another 2 weeks. I don't want to kick the can. So.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
Is staff
I
in
would-
favor of the quandary proposal as the top proposal? That sounds like the recommendation.
Are we? Was your question answered, Dana?
Yes, it was affirmative,
Okay.
Tyler.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to accept the quandary proposal. And yeah.
Give
Is
staff
that all we
direction.
need? And give staff direction on using the what did we say, extra funding collected this year from sales tax? Is that right?
It doesn't say you have to be that specific, Tyler. You
Okay.
could just make a motion to accept the chosen proposal and direct staff on funding mechanism.
So moved.
Direct staff to accept quandary.
I would direct staff to accept. I would like to make a proposal to accept the quandary and direct staff.
Got a second?
So you-
I'll second.
Roll call, please, Mike.
Roll call. Trustee Kringer,
Yes,
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee George,
Yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Well, I know this is going to disappoint a lot of you, but I will abstain from this vote. And I know that that pushes this out a couple of weeks, but I'd like to have Liv and Jordan vote on this one. And I've expressed my concerns for why.
Thank you.
Thanks for the discussion, you guys.
Let's get
I
Shane.
appreciate it.
grab sheet.
Oh, Shane, come on in.
Thank you, Dana.
Next item on our agenda is item 9C, OHV special election update.
So we released a press release last week that went into the paper. A special election for the town of Silverton will be held on Tuesday, October 3rd. And will be conducted as a mail ballot election. So drop off and walk-in locations for voted ballots and replacement ballots will be at Silverton Town Hall. Office hours are 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., Monday through Friday, the week prior to the election. Election day office hours will be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Ballots will be mailed starting tomorrow. Did we start any today?
They're all done.
Okay, we're all ready to send them, so we'll be sending them out tomorrow. The overseas ballots have already gone out. All ballots must be returned to the town of Silverton Municipal Clerk no later than 7 p.m. on election day. Any other questions on that, or do you have anything to add?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Is there a way to put any info on our website? Just with what you just stated, that'd be good. And then I noticed some folks were asking me questions around the press release was super helpful to share. But in the ballot language, it says like, according to accompanying material, and the press release doesn't have the accompanying material, right? So folks were like, well, what is being proposed? What's the route to vote on or whatever? So
And we can.
that'd be, thank you. Thank you.
We drew a map when, so in your ballot, you'd be able to see.
That's great. Yeah. So just posting it on, I think all the what you just said on the website would be great. Thank you.
And for like the 6 people who saw my Facebook post, that was a little confusing. I got a ballot because I'm still registered as an overseas voter right now. So that's the confusion. Ballots are coming out this week. I think I posted the press release, so hopefully that clarifies it, but I need to correct that on my end. And if you need to register to vote, you go to the county.
Mhm. And I'll be getting updated voter registration lists up until the election. So you have time.
Thanks for taking this on, Melina.
Yeah.
Any other discussions or comments on this topic? Okay. So the way that we're going to do this, we'll go to public comment as the last public portion of our meeting, and then we're going to consider a motion to enter executive session. The meeting will be closed to the public for the executive session, assuming that motion passes or is made and passes. And then we'll reopen the public meeting at the end of the executive session, but for the sole purpose of publicly adjourning. So the last truly public thing that we're doing right now, even though we won't adjourn following public comment immediately, is public comment. So at this time, we will open public comment. We'll start with in-person comment and then move to Zoom comments. If you're in person, please come up to the podium, say your name, and we'll keep a 3-minute timer for you.
Hello, I'm Evan. I wrote down a few things just so I don't get flustered, so I won't be staring at all of you. But I think it's really important to not spread misinformation, especially to people who might be just joining the conversation of the wetlands, that it has been going on for almost a full year now. and that multiple times the town did say this is a priority. So whether or not that was written down into something, anyone who was watching did take that as, oh, it is a priority because they're saying that it is a priority. So I just wanted to put that out there. Also kind of saying that it's either this or it's that. I know with like budgeting things, yes, sometimes there is this or that, or it's going to have to be further down the line, but we can have affordable housing and protect finite environmental resources. And actually they go hand in hand, because not protecting them in one of the few places that still has a lot of environmental resources is going to at some point cause us to have to still make choices of protecting the environment and people and having spaces be inhabitable. And as we've seen from experts, that once wetlands are gone, they're gone, and they've been destroyed all over the United States and the world, and we can't get them back. And I would say also if there had been an issue with, just like any other public safety, something that has come up that wasn't addressed in the town, I think if it was anything else that didn't become such a hot topic issue, there would be no problem saying, oh, we can't have the sewage overflowing in town. We have to think about this. We can't just put it off, because it's not usually how we go through a process, even though it seems that you all have wanted to be very committed to the process of making sure that things have been done right. And that's why this is still being talked about a year later. And then as to the point of what Tyler said, that you all voted to want to see these options of being able to delineate where the wetlands are, and we don't actually know whose property is on a wetland that is most important. We don't know who those people are and where those properties are. And so we can't even have the discussion of, oh, it's doing this to property owners or that, because we actually don't know. And there is also, just back to the Shrine Hill thing, because that seems to come up a lot, that there's so much developable land on Shrine Hill that is not wetland. It's not like there's all this wetland and people are saying you just can't develop on it. So there's going to be all this space that is just wasted. And that's not necessarily, I don't think, truthful. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Do we have any other in-person public comment? All right, so we'll move to Zoom public comment. Same rules, please introduce yourself. We'll keep a 3-minute timer.
Are you there?
We can hear you.
Very good. Forgive me for not remembering the lady's name that spoke at the town council meeting 2 weeks ago.
Melody, please introduce yourself.
I'm sorry, Melody Skinner.
Thank you.
Forgive me for not remembering the lady's name that spoke at the town council meeting 2 weeks ago. And I've already talked to Gloria about trying to get on a committee that lady wants to set up about zoning stuff about in town. But I want to tell you that at this point, it is a great thing that you didn't do it tonight, because one of the things that she said in that meeting that she wanted to do for our planning was to take away the town's ability to say you're not in an avalanche zone, you're not in a whatever zone or whatever, and have your whoever's digging your soil, checking for wetlands, checking for avalanches, turn in a report to the town. So the town isn't making the responsibility of that decision. Now, I'm not necessarily agreeing with what she's saying, and that's why I went on the committee. But I want to tell you that's what you guys voted for, was when she said all of that the other night. You voted for going that direction generally, even though she's going to have stakeholders from town help out, and I'm trying to get on there to help. So I think your 2-week delay is good, because I think you need to look at what she's going to do and compare that with what you want to do. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. I don't see any other public comment on Zoom. Double checking again that we don't have any other public comment in person. Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment. And At this time, I would consider a motion to enter executive session pursuant to section 24-6-4024A CRS concerning the purchase of property for affordable housing.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second,
Great. All in favor, by show of hands? It's unanimous. So at this time, we'll begin moving into executive session. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. You could technically come back to watch us adjourn later, but I don't think you want to. Thank you so much. And for those on Zoom, thank you for voluntarily leaving. We will be locking the Zoom meeting once the last of the public participants leave, which is now.